Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hurdle the Line. This is episode, I believe it's like 40, I want to say 44. No, I can't believe we've done this many episodes. I am your host, Fletch, and joining me today, I have the main man himself, Karl. How are you, sir?
All good, mate. All good. It is bloody freezing. Don't like the cold at all. So it's absolutely brutal down here. I'm in my slippers for this one because it's just too cold. But I hope you're doing well, and I hope Sam's, and I hope I'm glad to have Sam back as well.
Yes, I'm gonna say we have the other main man himself. He's back. Sam, saw you yesterday. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm awake. I was unfortunately had a bit of a busy time and ended up falling asleep on the sofa for the first time. So yeah, just too tired, but yeah, back to normal. Apart from having a child next to me that's asleep and hopefully not gonna move the whole episode.
As a parent myself, I'm sure Carl does not all too well that feeling. Just going, nope, I'm done. I'm just gonna fall asleep right here. Um, but more importantly, we have so much to talk about today. But before we start, a couple of the house things as we normally like to do. The on Saturday, so that's we will be doing a college football watch party with a couple, hopefully a couple of our college football UK co-hosts. No pressure on one of them who may or may not be in this room right now with us. On Saturday, 5 o'clock. Just if you're watching some of the college football and you're free, jump in our Discord server, jump in the little voice chat, and then we can talk college football while it's happening. We do it in a few. I do it in a few other servers, and always goes really, really well. It's a good laugh. Um, the link of which you can find in the description of the episode. With that also in mind, also in that description, you're going to find Fantasy Game Day, the first and only daily fantasy app in the UK by UK fans for UK fans. And you can get a free play on that app. If you sign up and use code HRDLE, that's hurdle without the U, you can get a free play once you sign up and deposit and play. You'll get a free play worth £7.50. And as we discussed yesterday, and hopefully everyone listens to both anyway. But if you don't listen to the College Football UK podcast, you will not know that Sam got a little bit of luck at the weekend.
Yeah, had a cheeky win. Managed to win on the £3. I think it was all afternoon games, all games from all just all games rather than just 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. And yeah, got not a lot. Was put £3 and got £8 back. But at one point, I was in for the big one, but then my team decided to do nothing. So
Friend of mine won the 60 quid one on Monday Night Football last week. Very jealous. Um, very, very jealous. But that's what you can get if you join in. Yes, it costs to join, but you can get a pretty little penny back if you so wish. Obviously, you have to be over the age of 18 and you have to gamble responsibly. But yeah, we very much encourage you signing up and using our code. That at least that goes for certain. Now, before we get going, I need to ask: have we got any news from this week that since Monday? Oh,
Can I just say one thing, mate? So, going back to the fantasy game, to our fantasy game day and so on, right?
yeah,
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that last week I gave you two players that actually would have actually done well for you in your leagues. I told you to go for Anthony Richardson. He absolutely balled out last week, and also I told you to go and get Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now I have to talk it through fantasy football perspective. So on the half PPR league that I'm on. He had 11. He had 11 targets, 10 receptions, 91 yards. He didn't get any touchdowns, but he did have one attempt of rushing yard at 8. He had about 16.8 points in that game, so he might have added a little bit more towards your winnings at the same time as well. And yeah, later on down the line, I will have two more names for you that you should be putting in your lineup.
as will I. Now, see, that's what happens. We give the elite advice over it. That's what we do. We don't do things in half measures. We give the elite advice that you desperately need to know. Um, since since Monday, has there been any news that has come across either of yourselves? I see a nod there from Sam.
Just MIDI. Mike Evans is back in full practice. He was
Love
back
to
in
see
full
it.
practice this week, so it's like he'll be brought off the IR to be returning for their match.
A big upgrade for the Buccaneers, considering the NFC South is now slowly crashing down on itself again.
Love to hear. Have you seen anything, Karl, this week since Monday?
GM Joe Douglas of the New York Jets. Of course, there had to be another scapegoat involved in this bloody franchise. He's been relieved of his duties. I'm not surprised that he's been fired. I think it's more of a case of, we need to point the finger of blame at someone. We can't do the head coach anymore. Oh, I know. We'll point the finger of blame at the GM, considering the fact Joe Douglas, apart from the real the big trade that he did of sending Jamal Adams on his way and getting 2 firsts back. Apart from that, it's really the only bit of deal, the only really good thing that he actually did, to be honest with you. And I know in that 2022 draft, he had those 2 picks, but bear this in mind, you had the 4th, the 10th, the 26th, and the 36th picks. You should be able to hit on those draft picks because you wanted them badly. So,
Did you hear recently about what he rejected? The trade that he rejected at the start of the season.
I didn't.
So
I kind of missed that. Do you want to elaborate?
yeah. So he supposedly there was a trade in place for the Jets to sign Jerry Jeudy, and it was going to be that the trade would include Alan Lazard going the opposite way and a few picks. And basically, it was all ready to go ahead, and the GM basically turned around and said no. So he then signed for the Browns. So interesting that one, but I think again there may have been some play in that with with Aaron Rodgers. He does like Alan Lazard, and we've seen that this season. So there may have been something in that, but I just find it interesting that he sort of vetoed the trade. And
Yeah. Well, I heard something over the last couple of days that was essentially Woody Johnson, who we've all thought has given the keys to Aaron Rodgers to do whatever he wants. That what I have heard, which is not confirmed, I'm not necessarily from the greatest. I'm not the greatest source on the planet, especially when it comes to Jets news. Is that Woody Johnson apparently had requested by week 5-ish that Aaron Rodgers be benched because he was not performing.
Yep.
And the Robert Sauer and Joe Douglas both continue to because they had the final say at the end of the day, realistically. As far as game day decisions go, they had the final say and they were overruling him, basically. And not neither of them have been willing to take Aaron Rodgers out. And potentially what you could be seeing is, well, I told you to take him out, you've not taken him out, and we're still losing, so um do what I say or go. And they didn't, so they went.
Yeah, this is just another chapter to the Gong Show that the New York Jets have been doing this season. It's absolutely laughable. You know, everyone is getting fired. Everyone's getting the single point of blame, except the person that is pretty much being the architect of all of this crap. And I'm gonna give you a prime example as well, right? The win percentage as a Jets starting quarterback. Aaron Rodgers has a worse win percentage as Jets starting quarterback than, let me read you off the names here: Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Ryan Fitzpatrick,
Ooh.
Geno Smith. And this is meant to be this bad man, meant to be this. He's still going to get a jacket. He's still going to he's still going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame. But this tenure at the Jets, this is tarnishing his legacy.
But how many successful ayahuasca trips have they had? Didn't think so, right?
No.
There we go. There we go. None. He's had one successful ayahuasca trip this year. So there we go. That's your answer. But I did hear an interesting thing this week, right? Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings. That made me laugh this morning because I think it's more based in the fact that someone's trying to spread the rumor that he's going to do a full Brett Favre and go through Packers, Jets, Vikings. So I don't think there's too much truth to it, but
He ain't going Vikings. Come on, man.
it's
He ain't going Vikings. As soon as the new season,
he'd
when
be
he
a
meets his
backup.
next, he'll be a. He won't be backup. He's one of those. He's one of those. He reminds a bit like a Cam Newton. You either play him or he retires.
Well, yeah,
He either starts or he retires.
yeah.
He's not a
I,
backup.
I do love Cam. I have very different vibes and feelings though when it comes to Cam Newton. That 4th and 1 that he does, I love it. I do love Cam Newton.
Mm.
So, um, but no, but if he went to the Vikings, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna bench JJ McCarthy, who looked damn good this preseason, by the way,
He did.
and really
He did.
started to get into it? I don't know. I feel like,
Vikings aren't going to fork out the amount that they would
oh
need to
no,
pay for Rodgers to then bench him behind JJ McCarthy. It just isn't going to
no.
happen.
No, it's not.
And I'm just thinking, I'm just sorry, I'm just throwing back to JJ McCarthy because I can't think of why someone like that would do well. It's gonna have to be whatever college he came from. It's gonna have to be something to do with that. I don't know. I don't know. It's just a theory. I don't know what college he came from, but
I
clearly
just
he's a winner.
That college isn't doing very well at the moment.
And they
no.
don't. Well, who don't they have? JJ McCarthy. That's clearly
And Jim
clearly.
Harbaugh, but yeah, can we just move on from that?
Or Connor Stallion. If we want to say if we want to carry on, they don't have Connor Stallions either.
Blake Corum, yeah.
Though they didn't have Connor Stallions for the last 2/3 of the season last year and still won a national championship, so no one come at me. Anyway, well, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're here for. Um, the thing I wanted to mostly run past you guys today is there is one other bit of news that came out. Is it yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
in that the final 25 modern era players have been named for the Hall of Fame as Hall of Fame semi-finalists. Now, I think the right thing to do is we'll go through all 25 of these players that have been named. I want us to have a look at we'll have a look at potentially a couple of them that we feel probably should have been named, should be in there and named because I have what was it? I know I have one. Sam brought up one behind the scenes. I think there are a couple here that potentially could have made it in, but that's the case every year.
I
There'll
picked
always
up
be
one.
one or two.
I picked up one from behind the scenes as
You
well.
picked up one. Yeah, you did. You
Yes.
picked up another one for that. We've all got at least one different one each that we thought should have been in there.
Yeah.
But that's the case every year. We'll have a look at maybe who we think will get into the Hall of Fame or should get into the Hall of Fame out of this group. And then we'll have a look at next year as well and who's going to all of a sudden be eligible for the Hall of Fame. So to get it started, the final 25-man list for the Hall of Fame for the Hall of Fame semi-finalists, we've got Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Anquan Boldin, Jari Evans, Antonio Gates, James Harrison, Rodney Harrison, Terry Holt, Luke Keechley, Eli Manning, Robert Mattis, Steve Smith Sr., Terrell Suggs, Fred Taylor, Earl Thomas, Adam Vinatieri, Heinz Ward, Ricky Watters, even Reggie Wayne, Richmond Webb, Vince Wilfork, Steve Wisniewski,
Wisniewski.
that's the one. Darren Woodson and Marshall Yander. So they are your 25 modern era player semi-finalists for the class of 2025. Start with a positive. Any names that you think, any names are lock in right now because anywhere between 4 and 8 can be named. Any names are lock in for you.
I'll start off with Luke Kuechly. One of the best linebackers. I remember when I first started watching the NFL properly. This guy was an absolute wrecking ball on the Panthers. Anytime you ever saw whether it was a tackles for a loss, a pass breakup, a sack, it was always Luke Kuechly. It's a shame that injuries unfortunately derailed the back end of his career, but Luke Kuechly for me does deserve to be in there. And This may sound like Patriots bias here, but I would also throw in kicker Adam Vinatieri, one of the most clutch kickers in NFL history. Obviously, he helped us towards three Super Bowls. Then went and joined the Colts and was still pretty automatic for them at the time as well. I think Vinatieri should be able to go. There's like 10 or 11 names on there that could go on there in there from what I can see of. But those are two that I'll just take off this list anyway.
Sam, anyone stand out to you as a potential lock that or you would have as a lock?
I mean, to be fair, this is a lot of these players are probably before my time and knowing
Yeah.
the players in the NFL, so it's quite difficult, more difficult for me. So I apologize. I'm going to go very, obvious and generic, but Eli Manning, I think, is everything that he did. And for me, Terrell Suggs as well. I think Terrell Suggs was. I remember seeing a bit of Terrell Suggs, and he was phenomenal. So those would be my two.
Terrell Suggs was the sort of defenseman that a quarterback absolutely feared. Because it
Mm.
doesn't matter what tackle or guard you had in front of you, he was just going to blow you up. The guy was a
No,
beast, absolute beast.
absolutely fair. But you know what? Actually, I think that I actually think that's a great point that kind of works in your favor if you will allow me to entertain it for 1 second there, Sam. Because this class is the earliest you had to retire. The latest, sorry, you had to or release. Whatever weight works around. I don't know. It's late. It's
It's
Thursday.
yeah. This is the last that you can't have played
Would have
beyond 20,
would have been
2019.
2019. 2019. All right. So anyone who retired in 2019 and before that, who isn't in the Hall of Fame would be eligible to be in the Hall of Fame in this class. You started watching. Was it? Did you say 2017?
So
Was it
I
2018?
watched the
2017?
I watched the Patriots Falcons Super Bowl, which was
Right.
2016.
2016.
Right.
I then didn't watch any of the 2017 season, but was sort of and ahhing with it, and then fully started
Right.
2018.
Right. So, okay, 2018 then, which I think again. So you would have the players that would stand out to you on that list. I believe would have been the ones who had either the better careers or the worst careers. Like I actually think that if they stand out to you, then clearly their careers stand out better than others. Just in a way, I feel like that could actually work in your favor for who you would think. Now, for to name a couple that you haven't mentioned, I think Steve Smith Senior. Um, absolutely think Steve Smith Senior. I bear in mind, when I got into the NFL myself and started supporting the Lions, it was because I was primarily watching Calvin Johnson. I stand by Calvin Johnson being correctly first ballot Hall of Famer a couple of years ago, despite the fact that he was with the Lions. Same with Barry Sanders. The franchise held him back. Not a knock on his talent. But Steve Smith was my other favourite wide receiver going into the league. One of a couple of my favourite wide receivers going into the league. I was enamored by just about anything he did. And I speak a lot about potentially I could have been a Seahawks fan just because the first Super Bowl what I properly sat down and watched and really got into it with was Patriots Seahawks. And my mate turned around to me beforehand and said, "Well, the Patriots are the Man United of the NFL." So I said, "Well, that's never happening then." Um, Seahawks were going to could have also been quite easily Ravens, um, because of Steve Smith Senior, and that's where he was at the time. So I think yeah, Steve Smith for me, and finally, where's that bloody list gone again? Um, I don't know. I would potentially also shout just to give a name that hasn't been mentioned yet from that same team, Marshall Yanda. Loved watching Marshall Yanda, um, as well. So. Okay, sorry, just in a list that breaks them down a little bit better. Marshall Yanda and Steve Smith Sr. for me. Is there anyone you feel is missing off this list?
Go on, Sam.
I don't think I actually said anyone.
No.
There's only the ones which you've mentioned. Now, I'd rather you talk, like, you know
Okay.
more about these players than I do. So
Okay.
I
So
only know one because of Pitch Perfect 2. So
Do you know what? I was going to let you have that. I was going to let you have the pitch perfect reasoning, but fine. It is fine. If you don't want it, that's fine. Good about your mum, Carl.
for me, Packers linebacker Luke Key, not Luke Key, but Clay Matthews. Um, again, same sort of mold as what Keekly used to be. He had an absolute
That's just
stellar.
Anna Kendrick. I'm sorry. The way that background's working, just Anna Kendrick. Bye.
um, yeah, he had 91 and a half sacks in his entire career. 519 combo tackles, 383 with the assists as well. He was a real problem on that defensive side of the ball for Green Bay. He did also join the Rams in the latter end of his career. But his best season was in 2010. Obviously, when the Packers won the Super Bowl, he had 13 and a half sacks that season. Two forced fumbles as well in that, and and an interception that returned for a touchdown as well. So Clay Matthews for me, I think needs to be in that list. Unfortunately, injuries did derail. Injuries did derail the latter part of his career as well. But as already Sam pointed out, he was also in a film. So go on, Fletch. What's your
A fantastic film, might I add here. Pitch Perfect, the second. A fantastic film. My least favorite scene of that film, but a fantastic film nonetheless. Now I'm going to give you. I know you guys have heard me say it, but I'll give everybody at home a clue as to who I'm disgusted at is not in this list. I'm just here so I won't get fined. I'm just here so I won't get fined. I'm just here so I won't get fined. Yep. Marshawn Lynch.
beast mode?
Beast mode himself. Marshawn Lynch is I disagree when you see it all like I see it all the time on social media. Marshawn Lynch is a national treasure. Marshawn Lynch is a national treasure, and I get it, but I disagree because Marshawn Lynch is an international treasure. Marshawn Lynch is a global treasure. Um, it's criminal that he's not in this list. I think. Now you were going to bring stats. I was going to bring quotes, but that's fine. I'll also bring some stats.
Go on
2013 season, 1,590 yards. That was they had four straight 1,200 yard plus seasons. And that was
then.
during the 16 game season. Yet he suffered a couple of seasons he had some issues with injuries. He was initially drafted by the Bills. Rookie year, 1,100 yards. Uh, Second year, 1,036 yards. With the Bills next year, had a couple of injuries, had some issues with that. Then he went to the Seahawks. That season, did not put up the greatest numbers, but then had the straight, four straight with the Seahawks in, like I say, 1,200 plus yards. Um, During those seasons, he put up 10 plus touchdowns in all four of those seasons. And you shouldn't get in because you had 4 years of production. He had six and just had some years blighted by injuries and issues like that. But he was called Beast Mode for a reason. He even turned up in the playoffs. 2013 playoffs, 3 games played, 3 games started, 65 attempts, 288 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 2014 playoffs, 3 games, 3 games played, 3 games started, 63 attempts, 318 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that year he even had 5 receptions for 63 yards and no touchdowns in the playoffs. I will always remember. In fact, I told you a minute ago. The Seahawks Patriots was my first proper Super Bowl. I sat there and watched and I enjoyed. Why did I enjoy it? Because, again, of another Marshawn Lynch quote, There's no reason I can't run at you and run over your face over and 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 over. And he went on for quite a while with that one. Electric. You saw five people on his back, could not bring him down. And I got told that this was rugby for wimps. And Marshawn Lynch is carrying MFers across a field. I'm sorry, but he was an absolute beast in just about every sense of the word. And as can just be a global treasure. I think it's criminal. Not just because he's a great personality and seems like a really good guy and a really fun guy, but because he was an absolute beast on the field.
Here's what I will say. Okay, so the positive part is the totality in his career: 12 seasons for Seahawks, Bills, and the Raiders as well. 2,453 carries, 10,413 yards, 287 catches for 2,214 yards, scored 94 touchdowns. He was selected to play in 5 Pro Bowls, and he won the Super Bowl in 2014. In 2013, beg your pardon. He could have won it in 2014 had the play call would have been give the ball to Marshawn Lynch at the 1 yard line, but I digress. You can blame Darrell Bevel for that one. The
The
only
play, the play that set.
Here we go. This is where we get to an argument
that
now.
play set my franchise back 3 years, not the client. Carry on.
The one thing I will say, what Marshawn Lynch I don't think has got in, he was a little bit of a maverick, shall we say. He was always against the grain. He wasn't exactly very, very fond of Roger Goodell. Let's put it that way. He was very outspoken. He spoke his mind, and sometimes it landed him in hot water a little bit. He does remind me a bit like he's nowhere near in the comparison to say, I don't know, as Antonio Brown, but they both sort of like had the same sort of demeanor in a way. That's why I don't see Antonio Brown getting into the Hall of Fame, despite the fact he's also a Super Bowl champion. Maybe somewhere down the line, Marshawn Lynch will end up being in that list, and I hope he does at some point when the dust settles, and it's like, yeah, do you know what? There's a reason why he was called Beast Mode, because he was just simply a beast.
Yeah.
Let's get him in the Hall of Fame, and I think he should be. I've just read the stats there as his all-time career. You haven't got many running backs that can do that sort of thing. Maybe Derrick Henry is probably somewhat close to that, maybe, but yeah, he was a stud, absolute stud.
So Marshawn Lynch, if you're listening,
Mm.
you might not have made it into the semi-finals of this list, but you've won our hearts, mine and Karl's at least. I'm not to be Sam. I would imagine that even in general, you would have slightly lesser feelings towards him because of his Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, I again, he sort of. I do remember the very end of his career, but it's for me, it's more like I have to go on what I know about him in terms of just what I hear about him and how he played, and the fact that you can, if you name a player and you know about him, for me, that's that for all the right reasons. Should I say?
Yeah,
Generally means he should probably be in the Hall of Fame, and he's one of those players where, he was so important to the Seahawks during his time there.
Yeah.
And, for me, I mean, I think if you ask any Seahawks fan, you would say, yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame, like straight away. And I know they have a bias, but,
yeah,
anyone with a brain realizes how good he was. And like you say, there's a reason he was called Beast Mode.
there are different types of running backs that I think kind of you get running. I'm not saying he changed the game for running backs. That's because don't forget he was also in the same era as Adrian Peterson. I get it. Adrian Peterson was another level of running back. He was. You have explosive running backs. You have strong running backs. I feel like Derrick Henry is one of the best examples of a hybrid. He's explosive and he's fast. Really fast.
It's like a monster.
Really strong. Marshawn Lynch was not necessarily the fastest. At least from my memory. Someone might correct me. and they'll find one of him going really, really like a touchdown where he ran as quick as he could, but he was just so strong. And the mesmerizing thing for me watching that Super Bowl, because again, I want you to bear in mind that the only proper other Super Bowl I've ever watched before in my life was Ravens Niners, and I turned it off halfway through the second quarter because it was the boringest thing I've ever watched in my life. I You watching it and just going, how can nobody bring this man down? Like I said, you have two, three, four at times people trying to drag him, and you just can't stop him. And for any short downage situation, it was just the obvious thing was always just put the ball in Marshawn Lynch's hands. And I just think that kind of reliability that you can put in someone elevates a team so highly and changes a level of the game for you that just for me he has to. But maybe there's a bit of emotion in there talking because I loved him a lot just on a personal level, but
He's also a very, very funny guy as well, Marshawn Lynch. He
exactly.
he is very, very good at funny. He's also very good at entertainment. He was on John Taffer's Bar Rescue. It was a while back
Was
now.
he was on that for a
So
while,
yeah,
yeah.
and I did watch that, and yeah, one of the owners tried to square out to Marshall. I'm like, that's not your brightest spark, mate. He was absolutely intoxicated, but that's besides the point. As most dive bar owners are anyway. But anyway,
I mean, to be fair, it weren't that long ago. Well, it was only a couple of weeks ago. Some kid tried squaring up to Jason Kelsey, and you're going, really?
Mm.
Like, cut. Like, I don't care how many security guards are around you and how safe, like, how much you just think you're acting up a little bit.
yeah, the only
But
thing Kelsey's paying for is the insurance on that kid's mobile phone. That's it.
I wouldn't. I don't think I could go near Jason Kelsey without crapping myself, let alone thinking I can get cheeky with him. But like, I think he was also on. If you ever watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Marshawn Lynch was also on an
He
episode
was,
of
yeah.
He
Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
was,
which is
yeah.
so funny.
I love that. I love that comedy. I love that
Um,
comedy.
it's but I'm actually I've got it here. I've got like I've funnily if it came up on my TikTok as well before. Just top five Marshawn Lynch quotes, and I bookmarked the video so I could go back to it at some point. It was just great. Um. But yeah, there are a couple of others as well. I'm going to read a couple out who were eligible this year that didn't make it. If I can cross-reference at the appropriate rate. One that definitely didn't was Jay Ajayi. So I'm sorry,
Yeah,
sorry, boys.
that's bitterly disappointing.
Um, British British-born Super Bowl winner, Boise State running back. Uh, which is a position that right now is a very nice position to be, a Boise State running back. Um, I get it. JHI never set the world alight, but he's our hometown boy, and I think that been nice. It would have been nice to see him. But I get it though. I don't see any reason why he should have genuinely been in there. Um, Rashad Jones, the former Dolphins safety. Demarius Thomas, wide receiver for the Broncos. Aqib Talib, a name that
Ooh,
stands out to me. I used to love watching Aqib Talib when he was at the Broncos, and then what he went to the Patriots.
yeah, he was. He come to the Patriots, and he was the mentor for Malcolm Butler, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
And I think the year we won the Super, I think the year we won the Super Bowl with Seahawks, we Belichick decided it was a good idea then to trade a key to leave.
Joe Staley, of the 49ers. I
Mm-hmm.
think the rest of them are pretty much in, or most of them are in there, or I'm not actually that bothered about their name. Like Mike Adams, I know who Mike Adams is. I'm not that bothered about Mike Adams getting necessarily into the Hall of Fame or not. It's not a.
One that I've seen that I've just realized. I mean, again, I literally know nothing about this guy. It's just what other people have said. Is Darren Woodson missing out again? Safety at the Cowboys in the 90s, but apparently he's missed out. So could be
Well,
wrong.
I want to say there'll be a thin year one year where a few guys get the opportunity.
Darren Woodson's under 25.
Oh, is he? Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong
At the
one.
bottom of the list. At the bottom of the list, I've got it from Adam Schefter anyway.
Um, but
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, it was the last one I was looking at. My bad.
That's all right.
Wrong year.
next year, right, I'm going to read you a list of some players who will be eligible next year who retired in 2020. And let's have a think about who we could potentially see making the cut, right? So I'm getting this from futurefootballlegends.com, and they've give them like each player's got a legend score, and I'll kind of go in reverse. So the higher they are up the list, the more of a legend score they have. So on this list, we've got Traymon Williams of the Green Bay Packers, and for that reason alone, I'm not getting him. Jordan Reed of the Washington Now Commanders is tight end. Matt Schaub, formerly of the Texans,
He was also a Falcon as well, wasn't he? Or my.
doesn't say that here, but
Okay.
uh, then we've got here we go. We start getting into Alex Smith. I'm gonna say no on that one. Lovely player, not Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
No.
Now his successor at Kansas City. I could see that one happening as the Hall of Fame one, but not Alex Smith.
No.
Mike Pouncey, formerly of the Chargers and Dolphins. Anthony Sherman, Alfred Morris, Damon Harrison, Dontari Poe. Feel free to jump in, by the way, any of them that particularly stand out to you or you feel a certain way about. Kawan Short, Sean Lee, Kelechi Ismail, Des Bryant. Was expecting a reaction there. Someone. Jarrell Casey, Thomas Davis. And I guarantee you a reaction will come here from someone. Julian Edelman.
Yes. Yes. Look, we know he ain't getting in. I know I love Edelman when I first started watching the Patriots play and I supported them properly in 2010. I do recall one, I can't remember what game it was now, but I think it was Edelman who managed to get a punt return and took all the way for a touchdown. I think it was only like his second game that he played. And I just turned to my old man who was watching it with me at the time, and I was like, he's going to be Brady's go-to guy later on down the line. Well, yeah, two go-to guys. He had Edelman and Gronk, but you know what? I mean, Edelman was the main receiver that he always went to,
Yeah.
and he was just a guy. He was just a warrior. It doesn't matter. He make him run any sort of route, and he will do it. But he would also get his hands dirty as well in the trenches. He took no crap of absolutely anybody. But unfortunately, even though he's won 3 Super Bowls, he probably won't. He probably won't get into the Hall of Fame. Patriots Hall of Fame, absolutely, but into the main Hall of Fame,
I
I don't
think
think he'll be. I don't think
it's a bit of a reach. It's a bit of a reach.
he won't be a first ballot,
No, he ain't going to be a first ballot.
no.
No.
but he could. I think I could see him maybe later down the line, maybe sort of third or fourth ballot potentially. I could see it if they
Yeah.
have a down year.
Yes.
Exactly. But also, like, I think listen, he's only a certain part up this list because like there are some names I'm going to drop to you in a minute where it is a bit like, right, okay, I can see why Edelman himself is not. So next up in the list, you've got Philip Rivers. That man should be in the Hall of Fame for having children. For fathering. He should be in the father. Like that is a Hall of Fame. I can see him going in first
He can go
ballot.
into the Hall of Fame for being a parent.
Yeah.
That's where they got the show from. One born every minute.
So it's a
Just the life and
documentary
times of Philip
about rich.
Rivers.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can. Yeah, it's then next up we've got Greg Olson.
I can see why. I can see why. I think Greg Olson was quite an underrated tight end back in his day. I think personally.
Next up we've got Mike Lapati, formerly of Cardinals and 49ers. Next up we've got a man who has ruined the song for me, Todd Gurley.
No,
formally.
I'd love for him to go in, but I don't think his career was long enough. I think he was brilliant and then fell off a cliff. So,
After Super Bowl 53, I think then he fell off.
but I don't think if he'd have been able to have continued that level for another 2, 3, 4 years, then maybe yeah, we're talking a potentially Hall of Fame. But I think because his career was essentially cut short because of injuries, I don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy.
Um, I don't know if I've told you guys. I had a job a couple of months ago. We used to whack like a playlist on during the day when you're working and just cracking on. And one of the playlists that we put on during the day was a reggae one. And every now and again, Sophia George, Girly Girly would come on, right? And if you're not familiar with the song, I do recommend you go and listen to it. It's a very, very good song. I really like it. But I'm going to ruin it for you before you've heard it. Because in the song, she goes, "Young man, you're too girly girly." In my head, I cannot unhear it. I hear, "Young man, you're Todd girly girly," which I think, if Americans knew how to chant, would be a brilliant football chant,
Yeah,
but also has ruined the song for me. So if you are unfamiliar with the song, I do recommend you go and listen to it. But I promise you, all you'll hear is "Young man, you Todd girly girly," because that's all I used to be able to hear. So there's that, and then next up we've got David DeCastro,
Former the Steelers.
former Steelers guard.
Steelers
Um,
guard. Yeah, he was a good guard. Very good guard.
a name that we've already heard again, just the junior version, Frank Gore,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Frank Gore, definitely.
Jason Witten,
Mm, in his prime, he was decent, but he didn't have the consistency later on down the line. So
LaShawn McCoy,
yes.
yeah,
He
Stephen
was he was one of the guys that I first got in fantasy football, and he
yeah.
absolutely balled out for me.
And then he kept freaking dropping it like it's hot every single
Oh
season
yeah,
after
then I just yeah, then someone
that.
else picked him up, and it didn't really matter anymore.
and then so next up you got Stephen Gostkowski,
Yes,
Automatic kicker. I still don't understand how the bloody hell we let him go to start with, but yeah, Ghost.
right? Are you
Yeah,
ready? By the way, before I say this next one, I need it to be known that I'm calling it a unanimous yes across the board, right? I'm going to call this a unanimous yes across the board for
this
the
is a
next
very
one.
obvious. This is obvious who you're going to say.
Larry Fitzgerald.
It wasn't who I think you were going to say, but yes, definitely.
Carl, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
no, no, I'm sorry.
No,
A generational talent wasted on a team that whenever they made the playoffs, we were not happy. We're just surprised.
Calvin Johnson.
Megatron, yes.
yeah,
If Megatron makes it in, Larry Fitzgerald makes it in.
That's a fair point. I can understand that.
Because his career was wasted far more than Larry Fitzgerald's was. Well, I say far more. His career was wasted a lot more.
he should have been. Megatron
Megatron
should have won multiple Super Bowls.
Megatron went 0-16 in his career. Don't forget. But Megatron also was being thrown to by Dan Orlovsky. So I think it I 100% for obviously biases thrown in there, but I 100% believe if I can try my hardest to take away all biases, Megatron should be in there. But I also think if Megatron should be in there, so should Larry Fitzgerald. I world-class player.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think you've now kind of swayed me on that one because of Megatron. So
Um,
yeah.
Next up on top of that one was Geno Atkins of the Bengals, defensive tackle.
Mm.
He has the same legend score as Larry Fitzgerald,
Mm.
according to futurefootballlegends.com. Next one, and I promise you, not only will they like this, I'm not bothered if this is a unanimous yes or not. This might be the one that you were thinking of, Sam. I will be murdered in my sleep if I don't say yes to this one. I promise you this will happen.
This was the one I was thinking of.
Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Drew Brees, I promise. Yes. Um, Not much more needs to be said than that. And then top of the list with the biggest legend score, Marquise Pouncey of the Steelers. Center.
Center. Um. Yeah, I can think he did win the Super Bowl with the Steelers. Um. He tailed off a little bit towards the end of his career, though. I'll be honest with you, but he was still quite solid. If that's the reckoning we're going to do for Marquise Pouncey, then I want to see if he does retire next year in 5 years, 5, 6 years time. I want to see David Andrews, Pat Center, then in the Hall of Fame, going up for Hall of Fame. Then, if that's the kind of criteria we're looking at.
Interesting question on top of this.
Go on.
If you could pick one player that didn't play for your team that has retired since before, so wouldn't be a Hall of Famer yet, but would eventually potentially be a Hall of Famer nominee, who would you pick that isn't in your team, that has never played for your team, that you would nominate?
Mike Evans.
Is Tom Brady the too easy answer?
It's
If not Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's the obvious one, but I was more thinking outside the box a bit.
No.
Yeah, my pick's Mike Evans for me personally.
He's still playing though.
He is still playing, but
I'm more
someone who
thinking
will come
players
up.
who have retired,
Right,
okay.
but aren't
Who
Hall of
may come
Fame
up in
eligible
a
yet.
future class.
Yeah.
I was going to say a name I've already mentioned, Adrian Peterson, but he did play for us that one year, so it don't count. And yeah, I feel like Tom Brady's like a cheat answer.
My shout would be, and this is because I remember sort of seeing the back end of his career, would be Richard Sherman.
Do you know what?
He was a bastard.
He was
Yeah, but he was part of the Legion of Boom.
Oh,
And
no, 100%.
so good.
100%, yeah.
That was one of my like I can think of a couple of players up there, and Richard Sherman was one of the top 2 or 3 that
I've
I
got
was
one.
thinking of.
I've got one. JJ Watt.
Yeah,
Um,
has to be. He's one of the best.
He's one of the best defensive ends
defensive
that the
players.
game's ever seen. Well, I would say second best because TJ is probably
I was going to say,
we could probably going to eclipse
brother's
every
given him a
record
good
that he's
go.
had. So
right,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question because I think this pertains a little bit to Marshawn Lynch. When it comes down to something like the Hall of Fame, and I will like this helps me to answer my question going forward, right? That question going forward. I'm not trying to not give a proper answer to this. Should it be purely based on field? And technically, I still can't get away with it because this person did think on the field that we're not great.
it should be done for field. It should be done for stats, and I also think as well it should also be done
statistical
field, and it also should be through like community as well.
For example,
maybe giving back to the community actually gives you more brownie points towards it, but there's also a sense of well-being as well. So you're giving back to the community in a certain sort of way. I know JJ Watt did this. Vince Wilfork done it a fair few times as well. There are loads of Jason Witten is a prime example as well, which is why he could end up in the Hall of Fame as well, due to his community work as well as being a decent, very good tight end back in his day.
So I guess like basically, if you were a dick off field,
You were
Like a
Antonio
real
Brown.
dick.
If you was
I'm not
Antonio
thinking of
Brown,
Antonio
no.
Brown. I'm thinking of Antonio Brown. No, but I'm
We're
thinking
all
like
thinking Antonio Brown.
if you go purely on field, and this is why I said he had that one situation on the field. So even that kind of takes it away to a certain extent. But if you
One
go
situation, are you out of your
statistically,
mind? He had more blow-ups than he had more
but
blow-ups than the fucking Ford Cortina does.
statistically and all that sort of stuff, the man was a elite
Yeah,
level guy.
his ability and what his output would be Hall of Fame worthy, but
But the off
because
That
he
the
was a
is,
antics,
but his
complete and
off,
utter
but his
nut job,
antics and attitude
yeah,
is
this
disgusting.
this is where the question comes from, because I could quite easily throw like two or three names out there. I would even say Adrian Peterson. I think Adrian Peterson will get in. I can't use him as my exact example because he did play for the Lions for a year, so it takes him out. But Adrian Peterson had some dodgy off-field stuff. Antonio Brown for me, if it was purely about statistically about the output on the field in terms of in a footballing standpoint, Antonio Brown is a no-brainer. But his off-field antics, I
yeah,
think so. For someone who I think on the field was elite at their position, one of the best I think I've probably ever, not necessarily ever seen, but one of the best of his time. And for being an all right, stand up, very just a damn good human being, Andrew Whitworth.
I knew
Yes,
you were going to say Andrew Whitworth. As soon as you
yeah,
said
Whitworth.
stand-up guy, because he won the Walter Payton
He did win
Man
the
of the
Walter
Year
Payton, yeah, at one point.
the year that we won the Super Bowl,
But
I believe.
I think Andrew, I don't think you can find many people who encapsulate both of them being such a damn good player and a damn good person as someone like Andrew
Yeah,
Whitworth.
I
Um,
think his I think he was always one of those players that until he wasn't playing, you didn't appreciate him as much. Because when he was at the Rams, for example, he didn't do a lot in terms of he wasn't like one of these like star like like the star players that makes the big plays and that you would know the noticeable plays. But when he wasn't playing, our O line was utterly woeful every single time. Then when he left, our O line fell apart. So that alone, I think, yeah, I would agree with it.
yeah.
I would also probably throw Jason Kelsey in there for good
Well, yeah.
measure.
Oh
I,
yeah,
Jason Kelsey, absolutely. I think there are a few. I think is it 2028 seems to be quite a thin year, I believe, in terms of kind of like genuine.
so that'd be
Obviously
the
that
2023 retirers.
yeah. Well, that'd officially be Tom Brady and Matt Ryan and a couple of some no a couple of no
That
brainers. I think.
2028 class is gonna be stacked.
Um. So that yeah, but I looked on there. Then there's only like 5 or 6 players that I can see that are like okay. But there are in between that. I think obviously, like I said, Jason Kelsey has to be in there. But there are a couple of years here where I'm like, okay, I'm looking at something. I 2027. Like I've already said, Adrian Peterson and Antonio Brown. But in that year, you've also got Richard Sherman, Rob Gronkowski, Eric Weddle, Le'Veon Bell,
Nope,
Cam Newton,
nope.
Andrew Whitworth, Jimmy Graham, Dante Hightower. I think that for me is a year where I'm going to
You can
I'll
remove
watch that.
Le'Veon Bell off that list. He's not a Hall of Famer. Not a Hall of Famer. The only difference between him and Antonio Brown was because the reason why he was holding out the Steelers because was he was also wanting more money. The Steelers were not. The Steelers offered him another contract, but it wasn't as big as he wanted. That's why he held out. And when
But
he
I
went to the Jets, he ended up getting less money than what the Steelers were going to give him anyway. He lost a lot of money. And since then, and after he went to the Jets, he just fell apart. He
I mean,
never saw him again.
I got to see one good season of Le'Veon Bell, and after that, he was utterly woeful because of all the issues off the field.
So I wouldn't put him in there. No.
but I think Richard
For
Sherman
me,
again. He's just a nice guy, Richard Sherman as well.
yeah, the thing that I would say about Le'Veon Bell is, and he falls into that category of the Todd Gurley in terms of was great but couldn't sustain it.
True.
So for me, that's I think when you see these players, there's certain players where they are. If you just went based off a 1-2 season period, you could say they're Hall of Fame. But I think you need to be having a 8, 9, 10
Yeah.
year career where you are spending the majority of that career at the highest level, and you are,
Right.
Pro Bowler, uh, winning NFL Super Bowls if you're in teams that have the ability to do it. Because for me,
That,
after
that
watching someone that I'm obviously Matt Stafford was Hall of Fame for me before he moved
yeah,
to us, but moving to us, getting that Super Bowl almost
yeah.
solidified it.
Would
So I
this is
don't
where
think you need to close to do it.
this is where I turn around to you and say thank you because you allowed me to you allowed us to justify Calvin Johnson again
Yeah,
because we did
you
in
don't need
terms of
a Super Bowl is a whole team. It's like where people, if
yeah.
we're talking about comparing it to football in England, Harry Kane has not won a single trophy in the Premier League. For me, he is still one of the greatest Premier League players of all time.
Oh yeah.
So, but because there's this belief that you have to win trophies to be seen as one of the greatest players of all time, which is total bollocks because teams win trophies, not individuals. Individuals win individual trophies of, golden boots, players of the year, Ballon d'Ors, and things like that. And for me, Harry Kane would be in that. So it's the same thing with the NFL. Like Matt Stafford would have been Hall of Fame for me no matter what when he retires. But winning that trophy just, I think, in the media's eyes, solidifies it.
Yeah.
But I still think there are certain players who you don't need to say they because they haven't won a
Yeah.
Super Bowl, they can't be in it.
I mean, and every single squad, well, every single roster you put together, like, every single Super Bowl winning roster has guys who play 2 snaps a game on special teams.
Yeah.
Like they get a ring, and it's a bit well they have the rings, but they don't have the out. So, and I do think it's always an interesting discussion to end up having what matter, and it's got a lot of it may come down to personal preference, on-field success, team success, all that sort of stuff, pure sheer talent. It's always an interesting discussion to have, and I think a lot of it will come down to what do you value the most.
Mm.
And then when I throw it to Cam Newton, I think Cam Newton revolutionized the quarterback position partly. Between him and Michael Vick, revolutionized the quarterback position. Had one of the greatest rookie seasons ever, ever. And I think that Cam Newton's wider career was not always as glamorous and glorious, but he revolutionized. He was one of the main revolutionizers of the quarterback position
He was
in
he was a
general.
quarterback, but he had the build of a linebacker playing at quarterback. That's a scary sight to behold.
I
Not
think,
just someone who can actually freaking who can put the secondary on their heels, but if he's coming at you at full tilt, you're the one that's going to take you're the one that's hitting the deck, not Cam Newton.
Again, he won was it the 2015 MVP he won?
Won the
Yeah.
2015 MVP. Panthers
So I
went
mean
15-1 on that season.
so I mean I think it's in terms of sort of like looking at modern players or players that are still playing now, it's someone like like a Lamar Jackson who at the moment he does not have Super Bowls. He's not he's got in the playoffs a few times, but he's on course at the moment, or he's in the contention to win a third MVP. So he's maybe towards the end of his career. Are we maybe talking about him being a Hall of Famer who hasn't won anything? Because individually, he's put up, he's been two, three, four MVP candidates and he's been individually an absolutely
yeah,
fantastic talent. So again, it's that conversation. Where do you draw the line as to what quantifies someone getting into the Hall of Fame?
I have a bit of a hot take I have, and might get absolutely stoned by Ravens fans by saying this. If Lamar Jackson didn't have his athleticism that we know he's got, the Ravens wouldn't be where they are, and John Harbaugh would have been fired years ago when like a few years after Flacco had gone.
I mean, possibly. I mean, he doesn't have. He's not exactly the most accurate thrower, but that's who he is as a player, isn't it? That's his main ability. I mean, I always joke with one of our Ravens friends who's that he's just a talented running back who can throw sometimes. I mean, Christian McCaffrey can throw a ball, probably not as well as Lamar Jackson, but he's a talented running back. So we just always joke about he is that his main threat is his dual threat ability.
Yeah.
He can throw a ball. It isn't as accurate, but he can use his feet, and that's why he's so good at what he is, and why he's always, in the contention for MVP because individually he's a great player and he puts up the stats that you want. He just doesn't. He just hasn't won anything.
Yeah. Entirely fair. On that note, it's a really good conversation, but I want us to move on ever so slightly to the weekend. And let's just get straight into it. Let's talk about fantasy football with a shout out to our wonderful, wonderful friends over at Fantasy Game Day. Yep, Karl, right there. Right there. Our wonderful friends over at Fantasy Game Day. I did say before, and I'll say it again, the first and the only NFL fantasy daily fantasy app made by UK fans for UK fans. The only one available for for us. Even if they didn't, you let us give you this incredible offer. You should have supported them anyway. If you go into the link in the description of your episode, or go to fantasygameday.app on your browser, or if you are, whether you're on an iPhone or whether you're on an Android, whatever you're on, go in your app store, go to Fantasy Game Day, download the app. When you download the app, sign up, and at the bottom of your little sign up, it'll give you the option to add a little code. If you use the code HRDLE, hurdle with no U, when you deposit and play, you'll get a free play back worth £7.50, and they'll give that to you because you told them that we sent you. And I think that is incredibly generous of them.
However, there is no hurdle line without you.
That is so
I'm
gay.
That is the cheesiest thing I have ever heard. And you know what? We're here for it. I love it. And now I feel really bad for putting that code in. I feel really bad for it now because there is no hurdle the line without you.
Exactly.
Okay, right. Well, that's just ruined everything for us. But still do it anyway. Still do it anyway.
We'll just end the podcast there. I've just killed it.
Yeah. I've lost myself now.
The spirit has just been dismantled.
That's hurdle without the U, incorrectly without you. And yeah, you'll get that. You'll get a free play worth £7.50 once you deposit and play. 18 plus only, right? You know if you're under 18. If you're under 18, just forget what I've just said, right? Listen to the next bit because it's still good advice, but just forget what I've just said. Don't download the app and gamble responsibly, please. For the love of all things, gamble responsibly. When the fun, the advert was funny, but and interesting. It's a cheesy slogan, but when the fun stops, stop. With that in mind, we're gonna give you. I think we should have a little look. So they've got a couple of really good games on now tonight. If most of you know, we're recording on a Thursday night. They've got the new Ballers series out, which is that's for Monday and Thursday nights. I'm pretty sure Ballers works on a Sunday night as well. But the Ballers series, £3 entry. You get a captain, which is 1.5 times points, and 4 super flex players. And I think the budget is, I want to say 24. No, I don't. I can just get the app up like a normal person.
Usually 48,000.
48,000. No, 24,000.
Is this the Ballers one tonight?
Yeah, the Ballers one.
The Cleveland Pit one.
Yeah, Cleveland Pit. That's 24,000.
That's 24,000.
They're
You get a
scheduled
cap.
for
It's only
rain and
one game.
they're scheduled for rain and snow in that game, just as a little bit of an indication.
So
Don't
I'd
choose
say
any
give
Browns.
tips,
Don't choose any Browns receivers, or don't choose Jameis Winston for Christ's sake.
but this Carl, this happened yesterday or last night for everybody who's listening. So I was a bit late for that now. If you've done it,
If
I'm
you
sorry.
chose Jameis Winston, you're an idiot.
You're an idiot anyway. It doesn't matter. There's no snow in
Don't.
there.
I've
Don't change
had
it.
to play him this week in one of my leagues.
I saw on ESPN that said they were scheduled for rain or snow. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to take that bloody site with a
So
fine pinch of salt. But anyway,
so I hope you went with running backs in your super flex position. You went with I want to say quarterbacks who run. Um, don't put a lot of emphasis on the passing game. Put more emphasis on the running game. And one thing they've done this weekend, I don't know if you've had a look in the app yet and seen tonight. Sunday Stars, the £7.50 entry one.
£200 bonus.
£200 bonus for
ooh.
playing. You get £200 bonus. That is, I know what I'm doing this weekend now. I know which one I'm playing. Catch me in that one. If anyone wants to challenge me, if anyone wants to go up against me this week, catch me in that one. 26 entries already at the time of talking. All lineups 5 minutes before the game start. You need to submit them. Now, I'm not going to give too much away. But who are you fancying this week, lads, in the games?
Okay,
As
so
good value.
it was good
picks.
value. Okay, so as I said to you already in the earlier on last week, I told you to choose Antonio Richardson. He absolutely balled out against the Jets, and Jackson Smith and Jigba done very very well last week. This week, if you're gonna go high on any player, and it's gonna cost you a lot of your 24,000, let's put it that way. I absolutely urge you to go after Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. Nix has been on fire since week 5, averaging 21.4 points per game. That makes him the QB5 in fantasy, 16 total touchdowns, just 2 turnovers, games of 75, 61, and 36 rushing yards. The Raiders, they are allowing the 8th most schedule adjusted points to quarterbacks. Bo Nix's last game against Vegas, 23.1 points and 3 total touchdowns. So I would suggest you go after him on that one. And then my other pick, I'm going to go for a running back of this one, not a receiver. I'm going for a running back. And I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bucky Irving. He's at a very cheap value, actually, 3,800 points. So that's actually a bit of value you can go for there. In his last 5 games, he's had 14 opportunities / game, 14.9 points per game. The advanced metrics, they're pretty decent. 6th in yards per carry at 5.12, 5th in yards created, 2nd in PFF elusive rating, if you believe that PFF crap, and 6th in breakaway run rate. The New York Giants, they allow the 6th most schedule adjusted points to running backs. So, yeah, those are going to be my 2 choices for your picks. So go for Bo Nix. It will cost you a bit, 6,600 points, but then you can level that out with Bucky Irving at 3,800. And those are 2 guys I am certainly going for in this week. Sam, what about you?
Who's taking your fancy, Sam?
Well, it's the same guy who I went with last week and captained, and he put up a shit ton of points. He plays for a team that have the most touchdowns for running backs in the league, David Montgomery. At the end of the day, the Detroit Lions are going to be leading in most games that they play. When teams lead, they tend to run the ball. And even when they don't, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown getting thrown, usually goes down around the 5-yard line. And who pumps it in? David Montgomery. Last week, I believe he scored 42 points as a captain. And I know that obviously Amon-Ra also had a massive game.
He did.
So, I mean, if you wanted to, double up on those if you can afford it.
Yeah.
The other player that I was actually looking at, and this kind of goes in line with what Karl was saying about Bo Nix, is Cortland Sutton. He is probably one of the more expensive uh, wide receivers. At, I think is he 5,800 or 5,200? He's one of the two,
5,600 Cortland Sutton is.
right in the middle. So I
Yep.
mean, the in most leagues you're going to be playing with 48,000. The average in terms of your player pick is about around the 40,000 is around the I think it's around the 5,000 ish mark. So he's just slightly over the average. So if you want to pick someone who's a little bit cheaper and then use him as a solid player, then I would suggest that personally. So those would be my two picks. I just think that they are um, great options. Another cheap option, which I think would be a good idea, just because of the game, would be DeAndre Hopkins against the Carolina Panthers. He's only 4,600, and I just think it'll be a game that they should walk away with, but he could have a good game there.
Interesting. So my budget one, I get it's kind of budget. In comparison to others, definitely budget. Who are the worst run defense in the league, fellas? Boys.
I'm probably. Hang on, I think I've got
Hang
my
on,
phone.
hang on,
Wait,
hang
wait, no,
on.
no, 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 no,
It's
no. Hold it, hold
definitely
it,
not
hold it,
his.
hold it, hold it,
Per
hold
that
it, big,
PFF
hold it.
crap, Carl.
No, leave it.
Stop googling it.
I'm not googling it. I'm on my fantasy app.
Per PFF, worst run defense in the league.
Worst run
And
defense.
Oh, it's Jacksonville, isn't it?
nope.
That's not
It's the
Jacksonville.
worst defense in the league.
No,
They are.
Dallas. It's Dallas.
Nope.
Dallas
What?
were.
I
Dallas
thought.
were.
I
Dallas
thought-
Dallas are the second worst overall defense in the league.
Oh Jesus Christ!
They are the
Give me,
worst
give me a sec. I actually have
tacklers
it
in the league.
down.
Rush defense.
I'll tell you who it is because I've got
Dallas
it
are the
written.
third worst run defense.
Oh crap! It's my
Oh,
team,
well,
isn't
it's
it?
Carolina.
Nope, they're not the worst.
Seattle.
I've given you about. I keep giving you a hint.
Ah, the Saints.
It's the Saints.
Oh,
The Saints are the worst for rushing yards. They're not necessarily the worst for touchdowns.
Rushing defense, just as
rushing
a whole.
defense.
Yeah,
Just
that's
as
what
a
I'm saying.
whole.
But they're not the worst in terms of just if you're looking just at touchdowns because
Not just, but they're the worst. They are the overall worst at defending the run per PFF. Second, well, they're on bye week, so that don't matter. Second, Carolina Panthers, Kareem Hunt. I say
Isn't-
Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, he's gonna have a field day.
there's talk that Pacheco might be back.
I think he was limited, if I'm not mistaken.
I would still for the budget option. It's $4,000.
I certainly wouldn't risk having White.
Four
anyway.
grand.
So
$4,000. Kareem Hunt will probably feast on that.
Yeah.
On that defense. My only worry would be this week is because of the loss last week. I don't know. It depends on whether you want to come up against whether you're going to come up against the pissed off Chiefs, or whether you're going to come up against the Chiefs who've kind of gone, "Well, we've been punched in the face. Let's."
No,
they're going to be pissed.
They're going to be pissed.
But
Yeah.
I would expect some handoffs, and I would expect when they hand it off for Kareem Hunt to feast on that Carolina Panthers defense, given that it's the second worst in the league, and just about by every other metric in every other statistic you look at, they are the worst. Between the Saints, the Panthers, and the Cowboys, between them three, running backs feast.
You know who could be an interesting one then? For obviously going by that in terms of Carolina being the second worst, is Xavier Worthy, because they do like to bring him,
End around.
Yeah, and he's done it a couple of times and got touchdowns. So there may be a play that you might want to look for, especially in terms of him getting a rushing touchdown. And he's only 3,200.
Plays like end arounds and jet sweeps, you want them because you're coming off a receipt. You just you just need the explosiveness. You just pure explosiveness. So you're always going to say like Xavier Worthy's always going to be great for a play like that because he's explosive. I would also like to highlight. Now I need to double check because I've lost where his value is this week. 2,800 as a tight end, which given that Sam Laporta is 3,400, and you can get where's he gone? You got David and Njoku for 4,400, all that kind of stuff. I think a wide tight end that would be worth a couple of thousand. Hunter Henry.
Yeah,
The last few
he's
weeks,
May's leading receiver, isn't he?
He is. He's
Yeah.
Drake May's go-to guy.
I was gonna say my reasoning being one, since Drake May's come in, he started seeing the majority of the targets. But also the Dolphins have been giving up points to tight end position more than any other position, I believe,
Yep.
if I'm
And I
correct.
will also counteract with this one as well. If you want to take another tight end, go and get Johnny Smith. Because
Yeah, Johnny Smith.
he's
Yeah.
been balling out the last few games. Hang on, let me
The
just.
the other guy that I would, if you're going to go stick on tight ends, is K. Dotton.
I
I
said him
know
a
that.
couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
I think his
I know
value.
they're playing
I
the
think yeah,
Giants, but I
yeah.
think you know Mike Evans is coming back, so he is going to lose some. But I also think Mike Evans is going to have to be managed. So there is the possibility that K. Dotton might see a few more targets.
Yeah, I agree with that because also Mike. Apparently, I got a notification from Ian Rappaport. Mike Evans has now had a full participation in practice. So not only will Mike Evans be obviously playing, but obviously K. Dotton's targets would now drop a little bit, but then should show his value as well. Going back to Jono Smith, as I said, Fletch, since week 5, Jono is the tight end 6. He's averaging over 14 points per game. He's seen 6+ targets in 5 of his last 6 games. 26.7% target rate, which is 7th, 249 yards after the catch, which makes him 3rd. 17.4% target share, which is 12th, and 4 deep targets that makes him 5th. And the biggest crucial one of all, it's a revenge game because he played for us. So this is a player that could literally hurt us badly.
Yeah.
There's a throw on that one there.
Well, those I think yeah, I agree. Just seen here, by the way, well, because you mentioned Ian Rappaport. Yes, I also seen Devontae Smith hasn't practiced for the second day in a row.
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith.
That makes the pick for Sunday Night Football a bit more
He
murky.
doesn't. He doesn't play till the Monday night, though, does he?
That's a Sunday night game.
Sunday night.
Because is it who plays Monday night now? Because they've just had 2 in the bounce.
They play Rams.
Rams. Um, right. Well then, I think for this week's episode, that's just about. In fact, no. Let me ask you really quick: are there any games that are really exciting you this weekend?
The Harbaugh Derby. The
The
Harbaugh
Harbaugh.
Derby. The
The
Harbaugh
Harbaugh.
Derby. The Harbaugh Derby. Yeah. John Harbaugh versus his brother Jim. Chargers versus Ravens. This is going to be a good. I don't usually stay up for this. Okay, I got to work, but this game I might have the intentions of staying up for because this is going to be good. This is going to be a good game. I really am looking forward to
Yeah.
that everything.
Last time I watched the Harbaugh derby, I turned it off halfway through the second quarter and said, "This is the most boring shit I ever watch. I can't believe anyone even likes American football. Can't believe anyone even likes this sport." A couple of years later, I screamed in my living room because the Seattle Seahawks chose to throw it rather than hand it over to Marshawn Lynch. What a week! What a week to be alive! What a week to be alive! Like these are a lot of full circle moments happening for me these last couple of days. Not gonna lie, in terms of my NFL life, but this should be a fun weekend. There are 6 teams on bye week as well. Um, that's one point I wanted to make. Can I say this is a crime against nature? A crime against football and a crime against and the people of Jacksonville that Doug Pedersen still has a job.
And Trent Bulky for that matter.
Still don't understand how he's in a job. I keep looking out for it, and he's still there.
Which one?
Doug Pearson.
I still think Trent should have been 5 years ago.
So, Karl, do you remember what I said to you last week about the Lions Jags game, by the way? What was the spread?
I think it was like -14.
It was -14. And what did I say to you on the Thursday night?
You're going to win by 20 points.
I said we'd cover the spread in both halves.
Yeah, and you was right as well. You was right as well. And obviously we didn't get the Pick'em show out, but obviously I basically said what did I say? This is Jacksonville, and where my wooden slats down there said that's Detroit, and literally it was a pamming, and it legitimately was a pamming.
Not to come in with the not to sound like I'm being arrogant about my team, but you can it should be losing to the Lions is a bit like, okay, they're a very good team. Look, we've been in just about everybody's number one position in the power rankings this week.
Certainly mine.
Very good team. There is
Yeah, but there's losing to the Lions, and there's getting absolutely spanked apart by the Lions.
Thank you. I was going to say there's no shame in losing to the Lions. We're a damn good team, but that loss, that's not just any loss. That's the biggest loss in franchise history. That's historic. That's a historic loss. It broke. There were records broken by the Jags in that game. Bad records that you don't want. It's a crime that he still has a job.
I don't know what's more.
The only thing they could be thinking is they're just waiting out the season now, and just going to get rid of him at the end. That's the only thing that I can think they're doing. There's
I don't know.
6 games to go now for them.
Only 2 wins.
So
same as the Giants. So
why not just get a high pick, bring in some talent, and get rid of him at the end of the year, and leave someone else to come in and start over from afresh?
The Jacksonville Jaguars will stay where they are until they fire Trent Baalke. If you're going to fire Peterson, you got to fire Trent Baalke as well. That guy is effing useless. And 49ers fans, when Baalke went to Jacksonville, 49ers fans were saying, be careful what you wish for. This guy's a literal piece of shit.
The only thing as well is that there seems to, obviously Tony Khan owns them. Tony Khan, is that his name?
Shaq Khan. Tony Khan is the one who owns all Elite Wrestling in a bad way.
Yeah. They're related though, aren't they?
It's his son.
It's his son. Their father's son.
Mm. Yeah. So that's that. There was a reason I got it wrong, but yeah, he's not exactly the greatest of owners, realistically, and that there may be an element of that plays into it as well as to why Doug Peterson's not gone yet.
Are you telling me that the man who bought Fulham Football Club and decided to put a statue of Michael Jackson outside might not have the greatest of intentions as an owner?
No, I think his decision making can be a little off, shall we say?
Well,
he still has that fantastic mustache, though. Come on.
Oh, he does.
Oh well, when we put it like that, I mean,
he is basically just the Monopoly man, isn't he? Just goes around buying whatever he wants.
Missing the top hat.
Well, we can get him a top hat. That'd be fine.
And the stick. Hang on. What's this? Hang on. No, there you go. There's the stick.
Maybe, yeah, the stick he should be using to beat Doug Peterson with.
Yeah. Out of the facility. It should be Doug Peterson who's the one being escorted by security outside, out the facility.
Not Robert Saleh.
It should be him, the one who's on the GIF where he walks up to the training facility, puts his code in, and just can't open the door.
Mm.
That man has a wife and a children and a family and all that things like that. I don't want to see a man lose his job, but also crap.
You've seen people in the NFL lose their job for a lot less.
We have,
and a lot quicker.
It's a bit like you got an employee, you got like a director at your work saying, yes, you're very good for the team, you're very good with the morale boosting and the projects you do and so on, but our sales and our profits are down the fucking tube. Sorry, mate, we're gonna have to let you go.
But hey, they got a win in London. That's all that matters.
Well, that's true.
Oh,
Um,
and on that note, go fuck yourself.
so I want to double check, by the way. I don't know if this weekend anyone can become mathematically out of the playoffs yet. I don't think so. Because,
Was there 6 games to go?
Yeah, there's
yeah, no, there's still a
12 or
couple of weeks left before that. There's still a couple of weeks
Yeah,
left for that.
not yet. I think we're about 1 or 2 weeks away. Yeah, I think if the Giants and the Jags lose this week, I think next week could be the start of
I
uh
think two
teams
two
not
more
making the
losses.
postseason.
Two more losses for teams that are on 2-7, I think, would then make them out of
Yeah.
contention. I think
Did you go 2-11? No, two
So
and nine.
I think
2-9, which would mean that you would have 4 games, 3 or 4. Well, depending on where your bye week is,
Jags are
you
two and
still
nine now.
yeah. So if they lose 2 games, that'll make them 2-11
Yeah.
with 4 games left. Sorry, with 4 games left to play, which means that they would only go up to 6-11.
So I'm just looking right now. In the AFC, the Broncos are 6-5 in the last playoff spot. The Jags are 2-9. So yeah,
If
that would
if
work out a couple of
if
games.
if the say the Broncos, did you say?
Broncos.
So if the Broncos win their next game and the Jags lose theirs, they'll go 7-5 and 2-10 with 5 games left to play. So yeah, they would still need they then need to win all out to even be in with a shot. And
Jags are
hope
done.
and,
Jags are
and
done
hope
anyway. So
and then hope that, the Broncos didn't win a single game and none of the other teams above them win a single game.
that ain't gonna
Oh yeah, I
happen.
mean,
Denver's
one.
run.
So yeah, I think we're looking
Denver's run
two
looks good.
weeks from now. I think we'll be able to make a decision on there'll be some teams that lose out.
So according to the NFL, you got one, two, three, four, five teams in the AFC have a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs.
So is
Win,
that
lose, or tie, they are the Jags, the Raiders, the Titans, the Browns, and the Patriots. Less than
yeah,
1% chance. Right in just behind them is the Jets with a 2% chance. Then next it jumps up to the Bengals with 13%, Dolphins 11, and Colts 31. Teams in the playoff bubble are 60% or more to make the playoffs. Like that, I think as it stands, all things will change, but as it stands, it looks quite clear who will and won't be going to the playoffs. There are only three in the NFC. That's the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Panthers have less than a percent chance.
yeah.
And the Saints have a 4% chance. The Bears have a 1% chance, actually.
The only way the Saints will get in is because every other team in their division still is trash, or has been not as good as they should be.
Hence, and this is also why, like, there isn't a single member of the NFC West. That's just such a tight, close division that
Uh,
nobody can
We're
beat
all
out
we're
out of
all we're
anyone.
all trash too. We're all trash too.
I don't say all trash. I just think you're inconsistent.
I think you're mid.
We're
Um,
very mid.
That
We
is
are
it
very
yeah,
is the
yeah.
mid division. It's the battle of the mid division.
We'll let
which is a shame because we used to be what um the North is now.
Would you want to know something that I actually found out early on today? The 49ers, they're ranked second on offense and they're ranked sixth on defense. Yet they're 5-5.
Mm.
That's alarming. That is absolutely alarming. They shouldn't be 5-5 with those sorts of records. They shouldn't be.
um.
Yeah, they shouldn't be, but they are, and that's what's funny.
But on that note, gents, I think this is a good time to start to wrap it up and say see you next week. Obviously, stick around on Saturday. If you go to the link in our bios, join our Discord, join us on Saturday for college football if you are watching, and just come and chat with us anyway. It's starting to, feel like conversations are starting to move a little bit in that Discord, and it's really nice. Got loads of great projects that we're working on, loads of things to get involved with. So we would love to have you in there. And if you're in the Discord, you get the priority on stuff like that. You get priority on learning about things going on with the network. Then on Sunday, Karl and I will run a Twitter space an hour and a half before the 6 p.m. slate. Then what else have we got? Monday, Tuesday, come and listen to the Hurdle the Line review show with Chapman, Ola, and Tom as well. That's going to be great. And Yeah, other than that, I think that's us done, boys. Anything that's on your mind particularly for the weekend?
No,
Squish the fish. That's all I can say, really, for my
squish the
team.
fish.
But on a more different note, obviously next Thursday is obviously Thanksgiving in the United States.
Yes.
We may have to change schedule because Thursday we're going to
Oh
have a
yeah.
very early game, so it
And
might be.
I ain't doing nothing during that game. You can bugger off. I I am watching Shibuzi. Um, I'm getting ready to watch Shibuzi.
It's going to be a good game. The first game for Thanksgiving is going to be a really good game. And then the second game, it's Tommy DeVito versus Cooper Rush. What the fuck did we deserve
Wild.
that for?
To be fair, that's because we had such a good game beforehand, so you can't have everything.
Um, so what's the bet, by the way, that the Detroit Lions stick to tradition and somehow the Bears beat the Lions on Thanksgiving?
Completely unlikely.
Uh,
It's like the Family Guy joke. Have you seen the joke in Family Guy where Brian get like two lions stroll up to Brian
yeah,
and he
yeah,
goes,
yeah. I've
"Oh,
seen it. I've seen
what
it.
are
I've
you
seen it.
like?
I've seen it.
Oh my God, like it's Thanksgiving. Shouldn't you be in Detroit losing a
The
football
football
game right
game,
now?"
yeah. um,
So
No,
it,
this year
I would hope so.
it'll be the Lions.
I goddamn hope so. I damn hope
Tell
so.
you what though, the media will absolutely cream themselves if Caleb Williams wins on Thanksgiving. They'll absolutely cream themselves.
of course they will. Of course they will.
Um, and it's like before it. Oh, by the way, I do want to say this by the way because I've seen everyone talk about the Tommy DeVito Cooper Rush thing on Thanksgiving. How many years were the Lions crap for, and they still wouldn't pull the Lions out with Thanksgiving because of tradition? It's not happening. They will never take the Cowboys off Thanksgiving. It's the Cowboys'. If you're
They could
holding
have.
it, if
They
you're
could have at
holding
least.
out,
They could have at least put a half decent fucking visiting team in.
who's who's at home?
It's
It's Cowboys, isn't
Dallas.
it? It's Cowboys, isn't it?
At
If the
Dallas.
I don't know,
Congratulations, Tommy DeVito.
if the Giants win, this is Jerry Jones should just sell the team. If you lose to the Giants on Thanksgiving with Tommy DeVito, who sounds like an owner from fucking Ben and Jerry, not Ben and Jerry's, Frankie and Benny's for crying out loud, then
If
yeah,
Jake
just
Paul and Tommy DeVito on their own have more wins at your stadium this year, Jake Paul in boxing and
if you can
Tommy
call it
I
DeVito.
boxing,
was going to say boxing is a very
if you
loose
can call it
sport.
boxing,
It's doing a lot of heavy lifting. I appreciate that. Um, heavy lifting that the Netflix servers couldn't do. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, yes, that's it. We'll see you at some point next week. We'll figure this out on our own at some point. What's going on? Um, we also need to talk about the Christmas schedule as well because that's coming up soon. See you next week.